Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, today we start off where INEC had spoken over the weekend that prosecuting electoral offenders for them is key. In fact, electoral offenders will go to jail. That's where they anchored Mike Ikechukwu, the resident electoral commissioner for Edo State, said that much. But we're reviewing some of the process now. Although that report from INEC not yet out, so when that is out, of course, you then get to see a lot more going into the analysis. Well, joined now by Mr. Ikechukwu Ikeji, who is a legal practitioner and an analyst. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, listening to this, I mean, everyone will readily just say that should be the case. It shouldn't be any major issue about prosecuting electoral offenders, but it's a big issue now because they haven't seen it happen the way it ought to. Yes. You participated, at least at observing, looking at things as it turned out for this election. It's in the front lines, as a matter of fact.
As a matter of fact,
what did you see?
Well, I saw avalanche litany of irregularities, and just about everybody who participated knew what was wrong. INEC officials were compromised. Politicians themselves were out to rig, and those who won outrigged those who lost. In other words, just about every politician that I came across was in the game of rigging. Okay, see, the thing is this, let me bring in this perspective, and I hope you don't lose your train of thought. You know, at the time that the candidates failed, during the elections of, I think it was March 28, when the commission eventually said, well, the report they had was just about 0.25 or thereabouts, if I remember properly. And so, insignificant, bottom line. And then, about this one, could it also be, because there are many who have said, of course, elections this time was better than the previous elections, given the introduction of technology. So could we also say that some of what you have seen, to a large extent, is significant? Nothing can be further from the truth than that these elections were fair and free. In fact, I have to be honest, this is one of the most rigged elections that I have witnessed. I was in the field, and I can tell you that electoral offenses were rampant. Fine, that's a good statement by INEC that they need to prosecute electoral offenders. But we've been hearing this over and over again. I think that the solution does not just lie in advocacy or in pronouncements or in trying to look at how to put technology in place to obviate the need by politicians to rig. I think it lies in removing the attraction, reducing the attraction in elective and political public positions by way of making it less attractive, and so there will be no need to want to get to positions by all means.
Okay. Yes. Let's look at specifics in terms of the process, because I mean some of the people who spoke up when they requested to see, for instance, result sheets, we did also ask INEC if that was right, if they were in order, and they did say, well, no voter, it's not their responsibility to get in a request for results.
That is not correct. You see, the laws, I can't remember the exact guidelines or the exact sections that made that provision. It is clear that all materials for the elections must be present at the commencement of the voting, and result sheets are included in materials for elections.
Yeah, but should the voter go there and demand to see all those materials?
Well, the voter need not go directly, because if all voters, hundreds of them, go there to ask, it may result in confusion. But they have agents. Political parties have agents who should ask and who should see these items, these materials. If voters hear that the agents are not seen and they start demanding, it's a different case altogether. Talking about the card readers, in a lot of places that I know, that I saw, the card readers didn't work, and they agreed not to use the card readers. And we saw people coming back to vote 2-3 times. I saw it clearly.
Which time? 28th, March 28th?
Both elections. It's
an amazing story.
Yes.
Whoa. I'm sorry, I just can't help myself.
Yes.
You're saying that people agreed. The question would be, who are the people who agreed to jettison the card reader and then have
voters
come back, vote over and over and over again.
Yes, it happened. It happened.
I'm just wondering how does it happen? Because there have to be certain things that will be in place. For instance,
yes, let me clarify it so that you get it.
Yeah.
In polling booths, there are polling booths where one or two political parties will be dominant. Mm-hmm. They have their money. This is an electoral offense in terms of sharing money, canvassing for votes within the vicinity of the elections, the polling units. While doing that, they are able to buy the minds of voters and the electoral officers there who would agree, okay, we've tried this candidate in one or two instances and it failed. Let's just dump it and everybody comes along with his voters card, PVCs, and votes. And I know that I have stories and I saw where people went back and tried to vote the second, third time and they were allowed to vote.
Is it that the electoral officers were approached right there, or they had a previous
I can
with them?
tell you that I have information that even electoral officers had meetings with different politicians. It depends on how much you settle them. Each politician settles, and the person that settles more gets the sentiments of the electoral officers. And so some of these issues have been arranged even before the election. You go to the election grounds, you don't see the result sheets, and nobody can talk. You speak, there are people ready to wreak havoc on anybody who complains. And there was a lot of ballot box snatching.
Well, these are grave allegations and revelations from you, because you say you were on the field.
I was on the field.
So you witnessed.
I witnessed it.
So it would seem as if, correct us if we're wrong, that almost every player was interested in rigging
every player. I say it with emphasis, categorically, unequivocally, and unambiguously that just about every player I came across as a politician wanted to rig. The people that won, the politicians that won, outrid those that didn't win. And you won in your areas of strength, localities of strength, where you can muster enough muscle, militant muscle, to bully your way through. And again, you find a situation where the logistics by INEC was anything to write home about, especially the 28th March elections.
It wasn't good enough?
It wasn't good enough. You found that in some areas, there were no vehicles to bring the materials and to take the materials back to collation centers.
So what kind of rigging did you encounter?
I encountered rigging.
I'm asking this, knowing for what that we had the card reader.
Yes. The card readers were in my observation, the card readers were used to the tune of maybe 20%. 20%. And the kind of rigging that we saw were the riggings that result sheets were not brought to voting centers and results were written somewhere else. Those are serious issues that border on electoral offenses from section 129 to section 131 of the Electoral Act. You find that most of those sections there are being observed more in disobedience than in obedience, and nothing is being done about it. And so while the problem is that the enforcement is poor. The enforcement is poor. The political way to enforce it is poor. And so how do you solve that problem? The best way, in my view, to solve the problem is to remove the incentives of elective and public positions. Make it less attractive. Make it just a nationalistic endeavor.
But the thing is, I mean, removing the incentives deals or speaks directly to those who are vying for those positions.
Yes.
What about the umpire themselves?
Well, the umpires are being corrupted. They are being corrupted by the players themselves.
It takes two
to tango. Yes, the influence comes from the players, the politicians themselves, with so much money. And we have so much poverty in the land that all of these electoral empires, they need the money. Monies run into millions that some of these electoral empires are settled. And so when such happens, you find out that it is the politicians that start the process, and the electoral officers have no will to resist it.
Don't they have, because I mean, going through the comments yesterday, that interview with Mike, where he was talking about, well, for them, they took this from when they are reviewing their process. It may be different from what the electorate see. They have certain parameters, certain goals, which their analysis will go on. You also read that part where it talked about the pre, the during, and post.
It's a perception. What INEC wants is perception. INEC wants the outside world to have this perception, to have this belief that the elections were free and fair. And in as much as they achieve that, whatever else happens down the line matters little to INEC. And so it's on that basis that they make their judgment. If observers, and I can tell you too that a lot of observers we are also somewhat compromised, because where you find observers being granted reception by government officials, you find that there is a lot of water passing under the bridge. So what INEC wants is perception.
Isn't that an assumption? Because
no, it's not an assumption.
Not everybody that
I was in the thick of the elections in Imo State specifically.
So all the observers that
I'm not saying all the observers, but a good number of people who call themselves observers were compromised in terms of not in terms of supporting the rigging, but in terms of turning the other way, why things happen. And they give reports, just like you find some audit reports that are suspect. You come to my office and I give you all the good things, all the good tidings, all the good money that you need, and you go back and you write a report favorable to me. That is what some of those observers.
Even though we know some, in all cases, their report doesn't have anything to do with the validity of that particular election. So what does how does that help?
Yes, what observers will come to tell us is that the elections were either credible, free, fair, or not credible, not free, not fair. And so when they say it is free and fair, some of those that have been compromised you will not take that result, their comments, as viable, as something that is credible.